Stop. The cycle is closing, and the Arcturian High Council has already opened the final recognition window. This transmission was not placed in your path by chance. The separation you have been living through, the relationships that quietly dissolved, the environments that stopped holding you, the version of your life that has been narrowing in ways you could not name. Those are not signs of failure. They are the visible surface of an identity-level transition that the Arcturian High Council has already mapped, already recognized, and is now prepared to name with precision. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly why your life has felt like separation, what has been removed from your path and why, and what the Arcturian High Council already knows about this phase of your unfolding. But here is the first revelation. The narrowing you have been experiencing is not loss, it is root refinement. The old line weakened first. The visible distance followed. What looked like rejection from the outside was always the early signature of a selected line separating from an environment it had already exceeded. This is the cycle's final sacred role recognition window. The council reading is live. Your role is being named now, in real time, with enough precision for you to begin moving before this hour closes. There will not be another window like this until the next cosmic alignment. The algorithm did not create this moment. It only delivered it. The separation process made you reachable. Like this transmission, if you know your life has been narrowing for a reason, comment 111 if this message reached you at the exact right time. Comment, I was separated, if you now recognize that what looked like rejection carried a deeper meaning. Subscribe to Arcturian Chosen Path if you are ready to understand the separation instead of blaming yourself for it. You were guided here because the separation is already active. What you are feeling right now is not the beginning of something. It is the middle of something that started long before you had words for it. The separation did not begin when the last relationship ended, or when the last circle quietly closed, or when you found yourself standing in a room full of people and still feeling completely alone. It began earlier than any of those moments. It began the moment your path exceeded the environment that was holding it. It began when your selected line outgrew the relational structure it had been resting inside, and the incompatibility that had always existed beneath the surface became impossible to conceal any longer. The tension was always there. The surface simply held longer than you expected it to. There is a specific quality to arriving in the middle of something you did not know had started. You look back and try to locate the moment everything changed, but you cannot find a single clean break. What you find instead is a gradual sequence, a conversation that felt slightly off, a gathering where you performed the belonging but did not feel it, an invitation you accepted but did not want, a friendship that continued on the surface while something essential beneath it had already finished. The separation was accumulating long before any of it became visible, and by the time you noticed the distance, the incompatibility had already been present for longer than you realized. This is what the Arcturian High Council recognizes about where you are standing right now. Not that you were abandoned, not that you were rejected, not that something was wrong with you, in the way you have been rehearsing in silence, running the same questions through the same internal loops, without ever arriving at an answer that holds. What they recognize is that the old line stopped being compatible first. The falling away came second, the confusion came third, and the self-blame came last, filling in every gap that understanding had not yet reached, settling into the empty spaces like sediment, heavy and convincing, and entirely wrong. You have been calling it rejection because rejection is the word the old frameworks gave you for this kind of loss. But rejection implies that someone looked at you clearly and decided you were insufficient. That is not what happened. What happened is that the path you carry became too specific, too pressurized, too directionally narrow for the general environments and generalized relationships that had been holding you. The incompatibility built slowly, the way pressure builds inside a structure that was designed for a lighter load. And when it finally surfaced, it did not look like spiritual refinement. It looked like failure. It looked like loss. It looked like you doing something wrong, or being someone that people consistently found reasons to leave. That misreading is exactly what this transmission exists to correct. There are specific patterns that appear when a selected line begins to separate from its old relational structure. The Arcturian High Council does not speak in abstractions when it recognizes these patterns. It maps them, it names them in sequence, and the sequence matters because each pattern builds on the one before it, and together they form the complete diagnostic signature of a path that has outgrown the container that was holding it. You may recognize several of these patterns, or you may recognize all of them. If you do, that recognition is not coincidence. It is confirmation that what you have been living through has a structure, and that structure has already been read. The pattern that appears first is the one that most people mistake for social failure. It is the feeling of not belonging fully anywhere, not at work, not in social gatherings, not in families, not in circles or communities or groups that once felt like home. You are present in these spaces. You can move through them. You can perform the participation, generate the conversation, maintain the appearance of connection, go through the motions of belonging with enough fluency that no one from the outside would necessarily recognize that something is missing. But something is missing. Something underneath remains unmatched. Something specific to you remains consistently unmet, no matter how skillfully you engage. And over time, that gap between presence and genuine belonging grows until the effort required to bridge it becomes more exhausting than the connection is worth. This is not evidence of personal defect. This is not a sign that you are incapable of connection or fundamentally too difficult to belong anywhere. This is what root refinement feels like before the route becomes visible. The Arcturian intelligence does not interpret the belonging gap as a problem to be solved through harder social effort or better performance. It interprets it as a signal, a precise one. The signal says that the relational environment you have been operating inside has reached its structural limit with you, and your path is beginning to separate from what it has already exceeded. The discomfort is not the problem. The discomfort is the information. The second pattern is the one that arrives with almost no announcement. It does not come through argument or confrontation or a definitive ending you can point to and name. It comes through quiet distance. People begin to fall away. Conversations that used to flow easily begin arriving less frequently, and then not at all. Invitations stop. The mutual effort that once sustained a connection gradually becomes one-sided and then stops entirely. And then the silence, where the relationship used to be, becomes so normalized that you stop expecting it to return. The people who fell away were not enemies. They were not bad people. In many cases, they were genuinely significant presences in your life. People you cared about, people who cared about you, people with whom the shared history was real, but the line they were holding with you had reached its natural end, and neither of you had the architecture to understand. Why? So the silence expanded, and the silence became permanent, and you filled it with questions about what you had done wrong. You did not do something wrong. You exceeded a relational line that was never designed to extend as far as your path was already moving. The Arcturian High Council reads this kind of quiet disappearance not as personal betrayal, but as the first visible evidence of pruning, not punishment. Pruning, the kind of structural removal that allows a specific line to concentrate and intensify its energy rather than dissipate it across connections that have already reached their capacity. A pruned branch does not fall because it was defective. It falls because the growth has moved past the point where that branch can be sustained by the system. The falling is not rejection. It is the system conserving itself for what is still capable of moving forward. The third pattern is subtler and often the most disorienting of the early signals. It is the sensation that old environments no longer fit, not dramatically, not all at once, but persistently and with increasing precision. Rooms you once moved through easily now feel slightly wrong, slightly too small, slightly misaligned with who you have become. Like returning to a childhood home and finding that the ceilings you remembered as high are lower than you recalled because you have grown. These are not physical environments alone. They are relational environments, shared value systems, unspoken social contracts, inherited ways of understanding what matters and what does not, collective agreements about how life should be lived and what it should mean. You may have spent significant time trying to stay inside them, compressing yourself back into their shape, convincing yourself that the strangeness was temporary, that if you simply adjusted your own posture, the fit would return. But the fit does not return. It deteriorates. Because what has changed is not the environment. What has changed is the specific gravity of your path. And no amount of effort can make an environment match a gravity it was never built to hold. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary sadness. It is the moment your path stops pretending that what fell away was meant to remain. If this transmission put language around a loneliness you have been carrying in silence, Chosen One Manifest, the protocol for selected souls, was created for this exact stage. It is not another message telling you that you are special. It is a direct protocol for those whose line has already begun to narrow, whose old circles no longer hold, and who need to understand what the separation is preparing them for. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. The fourth pattern is the one that most people endure in complete isolation because they cannot find the language to explain it to anyone around them. And even if they could find the language, they are not certain the people around them would be capable of receiving it accurately. It is a specific quality of loneliness that does not respond to company. You can be surrounded. You can be in the middle of a conversation, in the middle of a gathering, in the middle of a relationship that still technically exists, and still feel this loneliness with complete internal precision, as though the loneliness is not located in the absence of people, but in the presence of a gap that people cannot fill. This is because the loneliness is not social in its origin. It is directional. It is the particular ache of a path that has not yet located the relational structure capable of holding its frequency. It is the gap between where you are moving and where the people around you are willing or able to travel. It is not permanent, but it is the specific cost of the phase you are inside, and the Arcturian intelligence names it not as a symptom of something broken in you, but as a marker, a navigational marker, separation before repositioning, the necessary passage between a relational structure that has fulfilled its function and one that cannot begin to form until the old one finishes releasing its hold. The fifth pattern arrives when someone has been living inside the separation long enough to begin questioning not just specific relationships, but the foundation itself. It is the experience of being repeatedly misunderstood, even when communicating with clarity, even when being honest with genuine effort, even when trying with real intention to make yourself legible to the people around you. And what makes this pattern particularly destabilizing is that the misunderstanding is often not hostile. It does not always come from people who are careless or cruel. Sometimes it comes from people who are genuinely trying to see you, genuinely reaching toward you with warmth and goodwill, and still arriving at a version of you that does not match the one you inhabit. The reach is sincere. The landing is still off, and no matter what adjustment you make, the same distance reasserts itself. This is not a communication failure. This is not a sign that you are too complex to be known or too inconsistent to be understood. This is frequency incompatibility operating at a level that explanation alone cannot resolve. Your path has developed a degree of specificity that does not translate cleanly through the relational frameworks of people still operating on an earlier line. They are not wrong for being where they are. You are not defective for being where you are. But the gap between those two positions is not something that can be closed through more precise wording or more patient explanation. The gap can only close through movement toward environments and relational structures that already operate at the frequency your path now carries. Until that movement happens, the misunderstanding is not a problem you created. It is evidence of the distance you have already traveled. The sixth pattern is the hardest to hold steady inside without collapsing into the conclusion it seems to demand. It is the repetition of loss. Not one relationship dissolving, not one environment becoming incompatible, not one episode of distance that fails to resolve, but a pattern, the same structural signature appearing across different people, different settings, different years, different attempts to build something that holds. And when a mind encounters a pattern of loss that repeats across genuinely different contexts, it performs the most logical operation available to it. It identifies the one consistent variable. It concludes that the consistent element is you, and that the defect must therefore be located inside you. This conclusion feels rational. It feels like the honest thing a self-aware person would be willing to admit. It feels like finally taking responsibility rather than deflecting blame. The Arcturian High Council rejects this interpretation not out of kindness, but out of structural accuracy. The repetition is not evidence of personal defect. It is evidence that the path is consistent, and that a consistent path will consistently exceed the environments it moves through. The same pattern appearing across different relational contexts does not prove you are broken. It proves the separation is not about any single relationship or setting. It is about the selected line itself and its fundamental incompatibility with everything it has already surpassed. A road that moves north will leave every southward junction behind. That is not the road's failure. That is the road's direction. The seventh pattern is the one that appears last in the sequence and carries the most accumulated weight. It is the feeling that life is narrowing at the exact moment you expected it to expand. You endured the previous losses. You released what needed releasing. You made the internal shifts. You waited through the difficulty, with the belief that the other side of it would open into something more compatible, more spacious, more aligned with who you had become through all of it. And instead, the narrowing continues. Fewer compatible connections, fewer environments that genuinely fit, fewer spaces where something in you can rest without also performing. And inside that continuing narrowing, a fear takes shape. The fear that you are not being prepared for something. The fear that you are simply disappearing. That the separation is not a phase but a permanent state. That the route is not refining towards something. That the route is simply ending. This is where the Arcturian reading becomes most critical, because this is where the misinterpretation does the most damage. The narrowing is not removal. The narrowing is concentration. The path is not becoming smaller. The path is becoming more precise. What is falling away is falling because it cannot enter the next configuration of your life with you, not because you are running out of life. The route cannot open into its next form while still burdened by what belongs to its previous form. The narrowing always precedes the opening. Always, the gap between those two events is the exact period that most completely resembles failure and is most completely constituted of preparation. Now comes what the Arcturian High Council wants to name with full precision in this final recognition window. Everything you have been cataloging under the word rejection, the people who left, the environments that expelled you through their incompatibility, the loneliness that did not dissolve when you added company, the repeated misunderstanding that persisted despite your most honest efforts, the relationships that quietly dissolved without a definitive ending. You could grieve properly. the life that kept narrowing when every internal signal told you it should have been opening. None of it was random. None of it was a referendum on your worth. None of it was punishment administered for failures you cannot identify, or consequence delivered for a defect you cannot locate, or evidence that you are fundamentally the kind of person that environments and relationships cannot sustain. It was separation, clean, structured, root-specific separation, the kind the Arcturian intelligence does not read as tragedy, the kind that is mapped, anticipated, and recognized as the necessary signature of what happens when a selected line begins to pull away from the general environment it can no longer inhabit, without diminishing itself. The old circle could not hold, because it was never designed to hold this specific version of your path. The relationships ended because your direction had already moved past the shared foundation those relationships required in order to remain coherent. The environments became incompatible because you became incompatible with them. Not the way a flaw makes something incompatible, but the way a path that has traveled far enough becomes incompatible with terrain it has already passed through and cannot return to without moving backward. You were not discarded. You were separated. Those two words do not describe the same event, and the Arcturian High Council speaks only the second one when it opens your file. What is being built through this separation is not yet fully visible, and that invisibility is not a sign that nothing is coming. It is a structural feature of the phase itself, the new relational structure, the compatible environments, the selected line connections capable of holding the specific frequency of who you are in the process of becoming. These are not fully formed yet. They cannot be, because their formation depends upon the completion of the removal that is still underway. The route cannot reveal its next destination until it has narrowed enough for the new direction to become legible. You are inside the narrowing. The legibility is ahead of you, not behind you, and not absent. The separation you have been living through is not the end of your relational life. It is the end of a relational structure that was never equipped to carry your selected line to its actual destination. That structure had to be cleared before the next one could begin forming. What you lost was not what you were going to need. What you lost was what was holding you at a level your path had already exceeded. And every loss, no matter how sustained, no matter how many times it seemed to loop back and confirm your worst interpretation of yourself, was clearing the route, not closing it. If something in you became still while hearing this, do not move past that stillness. That stillness is not emptiness or numbness or the absence of feeling. It is the specific quality of recognition beginning to stabilize inside a system that has been carrying the wrong interpretation of its own experience for a very long time. The body knows when a transmission is landing accurately. The stillness is that knowing. The separation is already active. The pruning has already begun. What changes now is whether you continue reading it as evidence of your own insufficiency or whether you begin reading it accurately, as root refinement, as structural clearing, as the preparation of a selected line for what it could never have entered while still attached to what has fallen away. Repeat this aloud if it is ready to be spoken. I was not discarded. I was separated. Say it once more if you need it to reach the part of you that has been carrying the weight of the old interpretation in silence. The part that has been rehearsing the wrong answer for so long that the wrong answer began to feel like the truth. I was not discarded. I was separated. That is the first shift the Arcturian High Council is naming in this window. Not the last. The beginning. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this separation has already touched your life. It could be people falling away, the feeling of not belonging, repeated distance, unexplained isolation, or the sense that your old path no longer fits. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who feels alone, cut off, or misunderstood, and cannot explain why. And if you are ready to understand the separation instead of blaming yourself, subscribe to Arcturian Chosen Path. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a path already in motion. And this is only the beginning.